Hey guys, Ivan here, and in today's video we got a couple of very interesting topics to go over. The first one is about Keone Pearson, who just posted this physique update, the most recent physique update, and what he wrote in the caption is very interesting. So he's only 4 pounds up from his stage weight, and his stage weight was actually 201 pounds, so he already had 11 pounds. Until he reaches his weight cap in 212. Imagine that, how crazy is that, how massive he was, how bigger than everybody else he looked, even though he's probably smaller than all of those guys, like by 10 pounds. So that's one thing, and the other thing is the question he posed. So he says, how do you think I would do in the open? Now, this doesn't mean anything. This does not mean that he's gonna switch to the open next year, of course. Of course, he will stick with the 212 as long as he can make the weight without any issues. Maybe someday when he grows too much and struggles to make the weight, he might switch to the open, or he might do an open show just for fun, like what Chris Bumstead did. But even though he most likely definitely won't switch to the open, we have to talk about this. We have to talk about how would he actually do. Well, in this pose right here in the side tricep, he does look phenomenal, like he does in all the other poses. The only flaw that Keone has really is his midsection, especially that separation in the middle. It's called the diastasis, and you can also see it kind of from the sides. When he is not pulling a vacuum, his midsection is not looking very good. It's kind of distracting, but he is pulling a vacuum in most of the poses, and his vacuum is basically perfect. It's a very, very good vacuum. So, if he did the open, how would he do? Well, before we get to that, let's talk about, is he the best 212 Olympia champion of all time? Based on the number of the Olympia titles in 212, the number one guy is of course Flex Lewis, who won I believe 6 titles. He was very, very dominant in this division while he was competing up until 2018. Nobody could really touch him back in the day, but Flex was a lot heavier than Keone Pearson. Like, he was struggling like crazy to make the weight for 212. And in the end, he never looked his absolute best. His best look was always like at 4 or 5 weeks out of the Mr. Olympia, and then he would get a little bit too flat. So for his structure, 212 wasn't exactly, the best category for him. Of course, he was winning it, and in that way, it made sense, but he wanted to switch to the open. He tried for a couple of years. I think he had a couple of health issues, so he decided not to do it. I think he might come back next year, though, but that's a topic for a different video. As far as him versus Keone, I think it's pretty clear that Keone is better than Flex Lewis. What about Derek Lunsford? Derek had the same issue as Flex Lewis in the 212. He never really shined at his full potential in the 212 because he also struggled really bad to make the weight, that he would lose too much size, too much fullness. But in the end, he did look phenomenal. He was always peeled out of his mind. And as soon as he made a transition, as soon as he moved to the open, he took second place at the Mr. Olympia the very first year, and the next year he won. Could Keone Pearson do the same thing? We'll get to that question a little bit later, but you guys know that Keone is not struggling to make the weight. He is already 11 pounds below his weight cap. So if he did the open, he would look exactly the same. He wouldn't look any bigger, any fuller. This is him at his absolute maximum. Now, as far as him versus Derek in the 212, in my opinion, Derek is better. You could argue and give the front double bicep to Keone, mainly because of the legs, the leg fullness, and that's the only thing basically. The leg size, the leg fullness from the front. Everything else, all the other shots, like from the side, Derek looked a lot bigger, a lot thicker, wider. He was just a bigger bodybuilder. Again, he was struggling to make the weight. He would make the weight and he would probably rebound for the next couple of days. And like on stage, I don't think he was 212. He was probably like, close to 220. So he's like 20 pounds heavier than Keone, even in the 212. So, and you can see it, it shows. Derek was just bigger. And the biggest difference is from the back. Keone's back is still a little bit too shallow. That's something he needs to continue working on. It's gonna get bigger, it's gonna get better, but Derek is known for his back. Even when he was competing in 212, that back was massive, and he was getting so shredded because he had to make the weight that his glutes were peeled out of his mind. Just look at his back double bicep. I mean, Keone's legs are better. They're definitely fuller, a lot thicker, from behind and from the front. So that's the only body part that I give to Keone, but overall, I find Derek more impressive. A better 212 Olympia champion, and I don't think Keone would place second or win the Open Olympia in 2 years if he decided to switch. That's my opinion. You guys might see it differently. If you do, tell me down below. Now, as far as Keone in the Open, how would he stack up against the big boys, the really big boys? What about Samson Dauda? I mean, Keone is amazing. I love his physique, aside from his midsection, of course, when it's not hitting a vacuum. Other than that, he is one of the best physiques in the world right now. But, again, only 200 pounds. Samson has 100 freaking pounds more than Keone. So because of the size, I don't think Keone will do that well. I don't see him in the top 4. I don't see him beating Martin Fitzwater. It's going to be difficult against Hunter Labrada and Andrew Jack as well. William Bonek. I mean, maybe I can see Keone like in the top 8, potentially best case scenario, simply because of the size. If he stood next to those mass monsters, the size difference would be apparent. What if Keone switched to the Open at the Prague Pro? What if he did a Prague Pro against Chris Bumstead? Man, that would be amazing. That would be so exciting. I actually asked Patrick Tour before the Prague Pro whether Keone is considering doing it, but no, unfortunately, he was in his health phase, his recovery phase, so he decided not to do it. I don't know if he even had any intentions of doing it, probably not, but if he did it, that would make a fine comparison, guys. That would be so amazing. Both of these guys are very aesthetic, very classic, very beautiful looking physiques. Who would he won? I mean, Chris has the height, Keone has a little bit more size and thickness. It would be very, very close, very interesting. I mean, Chris managed to beat Sean Clarida, who placed second in the 212 at the Mr. Olympia, but I don't think it was even close between Sean and Keone at the Mr. Olympia. I think Keone is much, much better than Sean was at the Mr. Olympia. Keone is also a bit taller than Sean Clarida. I think this would be really extremely close. Right off the bat, honestly, what I'm thinking is I think Keone would actually win this. But I don't know, man. It's just a wild guess. I have no idea what would happen here, and we might never find out. Or will we? Well, Chris Bumstead actually posted a YouTube video, and he titled it, "My Last Time Competing Forever." Forever, guys. I mean, so far there was a lot of speculation of whether he's going to do the Open Olympia or not, if he wins the Prague Pro, if he doesn't win the Prague Pro. Does he need to win an Open show to compete at the Mr. Olympia? Absolutely not. If he wants to do the Mr. Olympia Open, he will get a special invite. It's not even a question. I mean, they gave it to Derek Lunsford simply on the basis that he won the 212 Olympia, and that's it. Once, maybe twice, I'm not sure. And Chris won the Classic Physique 6 times. Needless to say, Chris Bumstead is the most popular bodybuilder in the world. There is that as well. And also, he did an Open show. He tested the waters. He stood next to the Open guys. And he almost won. He fared well. So if he wanted to do the Open Olympia this year, next year, or in 5 years, whenever, he would get that special invite so easily. No doubt about that. Now, if you watch this video, it's a long video, it's basically his vlog from the Prague. You will see some unseen footage that we haven't really seen until today. He posted some posing practice the day of the show, the day before the show, so you can see kind of what he looked like during his peak week. And yeah, I mean, he looked amazing. He was definitely fuller. From what Ian Valier also said, he was actually 10 pounds heavier. So it wasn't like 6 or 8, it was more like 8 to 10 pounds heavier. And I don't know if he measured himself exactly right before stepping on stage, but I saw a video of him eating a burger, so he was probably even fuller on the day of the stage. So maybe it was more like 10 pounds or even more so. I mean, that's the way it looked. He definitely looked massive. So if you look at this video, you will see a lot of interesting things, but in the end, at the very end of the video, he speaks about his future plans, his reasons for doing the Prague Pro. Before I comment on it, let me show you what he actually said.
Did a pose down, did the Jay Cutler quad stomp, It was glorious. It was cool. Got to go into the crowd, do a posing. I'm so brain dead. What do they call that again? A pose down in the crowd with everyone and all that stuff. Came second place at my first open bodybuilding show and my last open bodybuilding show. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see.
Whew, it's good. It's good. Even though he titled this video "Last Time Competing Forever," that's not what he really meant. It's more of a clickbait. If you watched the video, if you actually saw just what I showed you, he said this is his last show, but maybe not. We'll see. So he's still unsure. I mean, after doing so well at this show and after having so much fun, as he says, I think he's gonna think about it at least. He also says that he wants to find something else, something new that's scary and challenging, because he gets bored if he doesn't have something like that in his life. And that could end up being, doing an Open Olympia. That would be amazing if he wanted to do it. Honestly, I don't think he needs to put on like a crazy amount of muscle. I mean, if he was at the Mr. Olympia the way he was at the Prague Pro this year, I don't see him beating Martin. But as far as everybody else below, like Andrew Jack was off with conditioning so badly. Like his glutes were nowhere near being conditioned. Hamstrings as well, back as well. His posing was disastrous. He was so uninterested, so bored on that stage. I mean, Hunter is a freak, but he has some flaws, like William Bonac as well. All those guys, I think Chris could have challenged them. I think Chris' best case scenario could have placed 5th at the Mr. Olympia this year, just with a different peak week, with those 10 pounds more. So if he just relaxed this entire off-season, not really pushed gear like a maniac, but maybe just stayed on something and gained another 5 pounds. Let's say 10 pounds. Let's say he steps on the stage at like 260. Yeah, maybe he wouldn't win the Mr. Olympia, but how much fun would that be for him if he was like in the first call-out, top 5, top 6 call-out, with the best in the world in open bodybuilding? I think he's gonna think about it. I think he has an entire year to think on it, and I think there is a pretty big chance of him actually doing it. Or I'm just being optimistic and hopeful. Maybe it's just wishful thinking, I don't know, but I think there is a reasoning behind this. I think it's very, very possible. Like I said, he is not done competing forever, not necessarily. He is not sure, maybe that's it, but maybe it isn't. Whatever you guys think, tell me down below. And finally, we got this super freaky physique update from Akim Williams, who is 1 week out of the Big Man Weekend, a show in Spain, and he's definitely the favorite to win that show. I don't even know who else is doing it. Maybe guys like Andrea Presti, maybe Horse MD, very likely Horse MD, but Akim beat Horse MD very convincingly at the Romania Pro. Actually, there was Emir Omeragic in between those two guys, and I think Emir is doing Spain as well. Can those guys, including Andrea Presti as well, can they challenge Akim Williams for the victory? I mean, anything is possible. I'm pretty sure Andrea Presti is going to tighten up his conditioning because he was significantly off at Prague Pro. He competed way too many times this year, so I don't know if he's going to be able to really peak well. But at Romania Pro, there was a lot of controversy. A lot of people actually had Akim winning this show because he was definitely a lot more impressive and bigger and fuller and maybe even harder than Rafa from the front and from the sides. But I never really saw it that way. I don't think somebody who has no back, especially in the back double bicep, can win a show like this. So that's the only reason why Akim didn't win this, why he didn't beat Rafa. If it was judged only from the front and from the side, of course, Akim would annihilate Rafa, but Akim has no back. I mean, he did post this shot as well, and here his back lat spread actually looks insane. It looks freaky. I mean, this guy is in crazy condition right now. Look at the hamstrings, look at the glutes, even the lower back, like everything is striped, everything is super shredded. And he has the width in the shoulders. You don't have to have the thickest lats to have a good back lat spread. You need to have wide shoulders, somewhat of lats, and the most important thing other than shoulder width is the trap thickness and the erectors as well. And Akim definitely does have that. So like throughout his mid back there is a lot of detail, a lot of density, so his back lat spread is very good. The only pose that he's going to lose against everybody is back double biceps, so he's most likely going to win this show. However, Horse MD did significantly improve for the Prague Pro, surprisingly. And by the way, he's no longer coached by Milos Sarcev, as I heard on Jay Cutler's podcast. Milos is still talking to him, they're consulting, but, Horse is making his own decisions, basically. And I kind of felt like he was a little bit overlooked at the Prague Pro. The guy that plays fourth, Matthias, he was more shredded, but, Horse actually looked super huge, super full, blasting full. And again, his conditioning was very much improved from Romania Pro. So is he doing Spain show? I'm not sure. He didn't announce it, but he did make this post in which the caption says Mr. Olympia 2025. How will he go to the Mr. Olympia 2025 unless he's qualified? He needs to win a show. So is he going to stop his prep now and go to the off season and prep again next year? Or is he going to just continue and do another show that is in Europe? Anyways, I think he's going to do it. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think he's going to do it. And if he improves his conditioning a little bit more, he may not be as impressive as Akim Williams, and he's probably going to lose in a lot of shots, but maybe based on the completeness, kind of the same way Rafael won against Akim, maybe Horse can take him out. But an issue here is that Horse's weakest pose, and it's a very weak pose for him, it's back double bicep, just like with Akim. It's better than Akim's, it's improved, I would say, but it's also a weak pose. So, yeah, if I was a betting man, I would put my money on Akim Williams, but don't be too surprised if Horse MD pulls it off, because he is a freak, he is massive, he's improving his conditioning from show to show, and he might bring something new, something crazy to Spain. We'll see. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. For more content like this about bodybuilding, guys, please stay tuned. And if you want to do brother a favor, just subscribe to my channel, guys, if you haven't subscribed already. I'm getting very close to 50k subscribers. It would mean a lot to me. It would be a milestone. So if you want to do that, I would be so thankful. And also, guys, if you happen to be buying hostile supplements, you can just use my code EVEN10. You get a 10% discount, and I get some commission as well. So that would also mean a lot. And again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. See you soon. All the best, and bye-bye.